Hello and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be sharing my applesauce cake recipe, which is one of my favorite recipes for the fall time, but it's also great year-round. So we're going to start out by making some applesauce. I prefer to make my own so that I can put spices into my applesauce easily, but it can also be made with store-bought. But it's also such a quick and easy thing to add and to elevate your dish. So I started out with about 5 apples, and then I added some white sugar, some brown sugar, some cinnamon, some pumpkin pie spice, as well as some ground cloves. And then I covered the apples just about halfway with some water, and then I put them on medium heat and cooked them until they became nice and soft. Now, what's happening in this process is the pectin in the apple skin acts as a gelling agent, and this is what actually makes your applesauce thicken as it cooks. And this is why I don't peel my apples, because the majority of the pectin is located in the apple's skin. So once it is nice and cooked, we are going to put it through a ricer, and just want to make sure that you get all the good flavor through. And you can see here that the applesauce is pretty dark because of all the spices that we added. And we're just going to pop this into the fridge while we get started on the cake batter. Starting out with 10 tablespoons of butter. We are going to mix that until light and fluffy. And then we are going to add in 1 1/4 cup of dark brown sugar. And we are going to mix that once again until light and fluffy. And I like using brown sugar because it has molasses in it, which goes very well with the spices that are in the cake. So now we are going to add in 2 eggs, mixing them each in individually and scraping them down after each addition, being sure to blend them in thoroughly. So applesauce cake actually originated in early colonial times in the New England colonies. This was because applesauce was easy to produce and it was very affordable, so it soon became widespread as there weren't many options available for easy and affordable cakes to make. Now to get started on the dry ingredients, we're going to start out with 2 cups of flour, 1 1/2 teaspoons of baking powder, 1 teaspoon of baking soda, a 1/2 teaspoon of salt, 1 1/2 teaspoons of ground cinnamon, 1 teaspoon of ground ginger, as well as a 1/2 teaspoon of ground cloves. And we are just going to mix those together and then set them aside. So now we are going to melt 1 tablespoon of coconut oil, and then we are going to mix with that 2 tablespoons of blackstrap molasses, as well as our 1 1/4 cups of applesauce. And then we are just going to mix that all together. So now we are going to begin adding the wet and dry ingredients into the cake, starting with 1 addition of the dry, then 1/2 of the wet, an addition of the dry, the last 1/2 of the wet, and then finishing it off with the dry. And you want to be sure not to overmix this, so you just want to mix it until it's just incorporated, and then scrape down the sides just to make sure there aren't any bits of flour left. And I added a little bit of extra pumpkin spice just to make sure we had enough flavor in there. So now I'm going to prepare a bundt pan by greasing it well with butter, and then I'm going to gently spoon in the batter. This ensures that there aren't any big air bubbles, but I also tap it on the counter throughout to make sure that the batter is all lying flat in the tin, and then at the end I give it a nice smack on the counter as well to make sure it's all evened out. So now we are going to pop this into the oven at 350 degrees for about 65 minutes, or until it reaches an internal temperature of 210 degrees. And you can see here that the cake grows quite a bit in the oven. It gets pretty tall, but you can see here that it has a nice crack on top. And there it is right out of the oven. And I like to let it cool for probably about 2 hours. before turning it out of the tin, and I actually let it sit in the tin for about an hour so that it can naturally fall, and that way the cake will not break. And as you can see, here it is out of the tin. It looks nice. And I just made a little bit of cream cheese frosting. I sort of eyeballed it, mixed some cream cheese, butter, and some powdered sugar together. And I also put in a little bit of pumpkin spice. And then I just put it into a piping bag. And I did this nice drip on top of the cake, which I just think looks very nice. And it's pretty simple, but kind of elegant. And there it is. It is wonderfully moist, and it has an amazing punch of flavor. It's got a great amount of cinnamon and cloves, but it's so delicious, and I would recommend it for any time of the year. Thank you so much for watching. As always, the recipe will be in the description below, as well as on my website, bakingwithbrie.com. If you have any suggestions or videos you would like to see in the future, feel free to leave it in the comments below, and be sure to give this video a like, and be sure to subscribe so you don't miss any future videos. Bye!